Alright, welcome to another C++ tutorial. Today we'll go, excuse me, I'm burping a lot recently. Today we're going to be covering class template. And this involves knowledge from template function. And as you can see, our first line, or our fourth line, is a template function. And I think I'm getting a blood nose. Yes, I am. I'm going to pause the video right now. Alright, let's get it. Okay, I'm back from the nosebleed, still getting it, but I'm gonna do this anyway. Oh, wrong window, not my diary. Here we go. So where was I? Okay, so what we have done is creating a template function in our fourth line. And then in our fifth line, we have made a bucket class. And what the bucket class simply has is a right. So one type of variables, and two of them in total. Before I think anything else, remember how we could just make class by typing class and then following the name. And since it's a class, it doesn't have a parameter, or at least it doesn't need a parameter, I think. And then following the class, we could enter public, private, or protected, and we will be getting into that later. But first, let's get on with Tesla first and second. So what does this mean? This line by itself doesn't make any sense. But because we know that we have created a template function up here, I've called this Tesla. So the Tesla, what do you call this? Generic name or something? So this Tesla will go on to replace all the variable types like integers or doubles or floats. So Tesla will be replacing all of them. But at the end, we will give Tesla a certain value for the calculation to work. And it's useful only when you have multiple variables and when you're calculating them in one calculation. Okay, let's keep reading. So we have two variables, first and second, and they don't have a specific type now. And under the public, under the bucket class and the public section, we have made a constructor. If you remember what constructor is, it's basically something that runs automatically when the class is called. So constructor, name of the class, parameter. Usually we'll be entering int a or int b or double a or double b. But since we are using the template function here, we just go on to replace all the integers. All the types in our function. So under this function, under this class, and the constructor, which is a function that we are creating here, just remember to replace all the variable types with the name you have given in your template. Well, for mine, it's Tesla because Tesla is great, you know? Okay, so now what does our constructor do? It takes first and make it equal to A. And we can do this because we have created two integers up in our up in our bucket class in the sixth line. And down here, we are introducing two more values. So by making first and second equal to A and B, we're simply inputting two values into first and second. So you don't have to use A and B explicitly. Okay. All right. So now under the public, we have Tesla bigger. And this is a function that um, we haven't added any program to. So right now, this by itself doesn't do anything. So that's everything in the bucket class. Let's go down here to see what we have. Now, before anything else, since this is a tricky subject, and you don't have to understand everything in this tutorial to go on and do C++ programming. So this tutorial will be very unprofessional and may not be as complete as other tutorials. Okay, now down here, I think this is the same thing that we had up here. So let's ignore this line first. Don't worry why it's there because I don't know why. So let's skip this line first and we'll come back to it later. Let's read down here. Tesla bucket, Tesla bigger. Return. So by reading these two lines, you may not get anything at all. But here, we're just telling what the bigger function should do. So simply put, when we are using something from the public class that's under bucket, the public section that's under the bucket class, we have to add this for some reason because the C++ programmers thought it's a good idea to add it in. So it's important. The program won't run without this line, even though we have just mentioned it lines before. It will make sense if you just have to say it once and don't say it twice, right? But this is how they decided to do it. It's pretty dumb, but keep that in mind. Okay, so that line doesn't matter, and let's go on to read these two lines. Why would you have that and that twice? Why would you have two Teslas in one line? That doesn't look right. But this is a very tricky, an exception to things. There's always exception. So what we are doing right now is stating the bucket class and stating the function, the bigger function, ignoring Tesla. Now, if we include Tesla and look at Tesla, so the first Tesla is the return type. Now, for now, we don't have a specific return type, so we just have Tesla. And the second one, in the arrow brackets, we just have it for some reason. I don't really know why. Well, it's not an important subject, but just recognize it, know what it does when you see it. It's not important. What this does is just making you spending less time on writing more code, but it's not fundamental and you don't have to understand it entirely. Okay. Now the first line is done with. Let's go on to the second line. And what the heck is this? Well, what this simply is saying is if first is larger than the second, if A is bigger than B, and if sorry, if A is bigger than B, then return the first number, which is A. But on the other hand, if the second number is bigger than the first number, in other words, if B is bigger than A, then return A. Return B. Always return the larger value. Okay, now everything is done here. We have our bucket class. We have a template function. So we can choose the return type in the end. And we have a function called bigger. And we have everything that bigger needs to function. Get it? Function needs to function. Okay. And bigger will return the bigger value. That's why it's called bigger. Now, if you are familiar with this, structure, you will know that we almost always create function and then we call it in our main. And since we're working with classes here, a class needs to have an object. And so, class object Bucky BO. Hold on a second. Why is that there? Huh. All right, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. So with our Bucky class and our object, it's again different. So let's go from start. Usually when we create an object, we simply state the class name, which in this case is Bucky. And then after, separated by a spacebar, we enter the object name. Well, this is Bucky object. And if we have to input values, we simply do that in the object. We don't do it in the function. That's pretty weird, but get used to it. And what this is stating the return type. If we are returning integers, say like we have right now, because we have 69 and 195. If we are returning full numbers like 69 or 195, it's going to return a full number, a whole number, because and it's going to return 195 because 195 is bigger than 69. But if we decide to return, 19, return the double type, we can simply do it right here, and the program will go and choose the larger number and print it out in the double type. That simply means having decimal point, having numbers after the decimal point. And this step is necessary because we haven't stated mm, yeah, what type our calculation will be and what number will it output. And the last step is pretty simple: print out using the object we call the function. Because the function we know is under the Bucky class, we use the Bucky class to get the object and use the Bucky object to call the function. And we input the numbers for the function in our object. So that is a lot of stuff to take in one day. And this is not important. Just keep that in mind. If you're having trouble, if you're struggling, if you're getting stuck on this, just skip this video. It's not important.